Alright, so I'm gonna be real with you all. This is maybe the hardest video I've ever had to record. It's far from the most difficult I'm going to have to piece together and edit, but as far as actually sitting down in front of my mic and speaking, it's been really hard to make this video. You know how when sometimes I talk about certain games that just bore me to tears and I just lose things to talk about because the game is so uninteresting? This is the exact opposite, whereas there is just so much that I want to say that I just become overwhelmed and just mentally shut down when I reach a certain point in the video. And I shit you all not, I spent a good hour and a half the day before recording this take, doing multiple takes of this topic, but I had to stop each time because I wasn't satisfied. And the reason I've been having such a really hard time recording this video is because I just become more and more baffled to the point where I'm at a loss for words by what PlayStation is doing, what the week they had last week, and what PlayStation is slowly becoming. One of my regrets with the video I released about Sony shutting down the digital storefronts is that I did not talk about, and that was completely on me, that's 100% my bad, I didn't talk about the poor Vita indie devs that are going to be severely impacted by the store closing, and how Sony just thoughtlessly, carelessly did not tell almost anyone that was still working on a Vita digital game what was going to happen to the store. It's been reported that Sony a few months back told one developer, and specifically told them that they were going to be the last Vita game on the store. But they didn't bother telling anyone else what was going to happen. Over the years, I've known Sony to make stupid decisions. I've known Sony to make arrogant decisions. But this is maybe the first time in quite a while, or at least far back as I can remember, I've seen Sony make a decision that was flat out ethically reprehensible. And I'm sure Sony did their homework as far as being able to get away with this legally, but it is, and quite frankly, it is disgusting. Because these indie devs, these poor indie devs, some of them do not have the resources to just move on to the next project. This is years of their lives that they poured into these games, hoping to take advantage of the pretty decent digital market that the Vita still has around because of areas like Japan that are almost wholly focused on handhelds at this point. Sony is impacting their livelihoods to the point where they either need to crunch out these games to be available for maybe a week, a couple weeks, or their games are just flat out canceled. And that's just years of hard work and a bunch of resources flushed down the toilet. How dare Sony pull this? And make no mistake, although I'm not using my angry voice, Razorblade Mango trademark angry voice where I'm screaming into the mic, this pisses me off. Because the more I think about it and the more I put myself in the shoes of these developers that have now had years of their lives and hard work wasted by Sony. Sony have just Thanos snapped these games out of existence and potentially ruin lives. I don't know what boardroom of suits came up with this decision, but they ought to be ashamed of themselves. Did no one at Sony really seriously sit down and consider the ramifications of what would happen if they were to shut down the Vita store? Did no one there think about this? I guess not, because they're going to do it anyway, and this whole week, they've just been sitting on their ass doing nothing. You know what they've been doing instead of addressing this? Like ethically responsible business people? They've been promoting fucking Mortal Kombat tournaments on YouTube and talking about all these other things. that no one cares about. And this whole line of PlayStation loves indies, ever since this, it rings so hollow. It rings more hollow than ever that they love indie devs. Tell that to the hundreds of indie devs that were working on Vita games that are now potentially fucked. Tell that to them. Tell that to them that PlayStation loves indie games. They don't. They don't. And I don't care how many GQ interviews that fucking cunt Jim Ryan has put through where he talks about, oh, I love indie games, I love PlayStation, the brand. No. Talking completely out of their ass. Their words say one thing, their actions tell an entirely different story. In the future, if any small indie dev does not want to prioritize PlayStation as a platform, I honestly couldn't blame them after this. Why would they have any reason to trust Sony that they're going to do right by them? They don't. Unless they're one of these big-wig, like, bigger tier quasi AAA indie game studios. Sony definitely cares about them, but fuck the little guy. They don't care about them at all. And it's gross. And that's not the only thing that happened last week. Last week, if that wasn't bad enough, where they're closing down the PS3, PS Vita, and PSP stores, and also, I didn't know this at the time as well, I didn't know that they had quietly killed off the web browser for PS3, Vita, and PSP titles. So, trying to easily purchase games on your web browser, it's just gone. It's gone. You gotta go through the shit PS3 system in order to do it, and it takes forever, and it's a pain, and it's just so inconvenient to do compared to what Xbox is doing. Speaking of Xbox pulled maybe the biggest baller move I've seen a console manufacturer pull in years, probably since E3 2013, where Sony just smacked down the Xbox One at the time. If you don't know what's going on with this MLB The Show 21 thing, let me fill you in. So, in a bombshell move, Xbox announced last Friday that they were going to make MLB The Show 21 available for no extra fee for subscribers of Xbox Game Pass on console. Let me repeat that. They are taking a game that from a series that has historically been PlayStation exclusive for years. It's one of Sony's big money makers because of the microtransactions. It's been a Sony staple for years, generations. They're taking the first ever time that it will be available at Xbox, and they're making it available for their own, for PlayStation's rival service. Their own game is being weaponized against them that they developed themselves. It's insane. It's surreal how bad this looks for PlayStation. What is PlayStation doing? Instead of offering it maybe on PlayStation Now or giving us like a steep discount on PS Plus, they are charging $60 for the PS4 version, $70 for the PS5 version, and if you want both gen versions, you gotta buy the $85 Jackie Robinson edition. Meanwhile, Xbox will have both gen versions available on Game Pass, no additional cost besides what you already pay for Game Pass. So, if you want to play MLB The Show 21 on your Xbox One X, you don't have a next-gen console yet, you play it on there, you enjoy it, hey, the opportunity comes, you get a Series S or a Series X, go over there, boom, all your progress is right there. Didn't have to pay any additional fees whatsoever. Meanwhile, PlayStation is over here going, $85 please for both gen versions, which is something they don't need to do, by the way. I don't care how expensive this game is to make. They've got the microtransactions. Yeah. And I've said this many times. I have no problem with games that are $70 as long as they are packed with content, aren't monetized the hell, and are very, like, of high quality. I don't mind. I really don't. But this is one of my exceptions. This is not one of the exceptions with MLB The Show 21. They could have charged $50 for this and still would have made a lot of money on the microtransactions. But because Sony is a greedy asshole, they're like, oh, 60 for the last gen, 70 for the current gen. Oh, what's that? You want both versions? $85. Oh, you don't want microtransactions? Well, too bad. They're shoved in your face every chance you get in the Dynasty mode. When I think about this deal, I'm not even mad. It just makes me laugh. I find it funny. I find it hilarious how embarrassing this looks for PlayStation. And people have argued that this is being blown way out of proportion. I don't quite think it is. I don't think Sony really cares as much as its supporters do, but the optics are just awful for PlayStation. And this is what it's starting to become a battle of, optics. Because PlayStation can be as financially successful as they want, but if they lose the high ground when it comes to customer satisfaction and public perception, that ain't gonna fly. Because Xbox, all you gotta do is look at Xbox during the last generation, because they made great strides to improve the service, but they never ever got over what happened at the beginning of 2013 with the Xbox One. They never recovered from that in the last gen. Now, they are making insane waves to not only recover the high ground, but to absolutely stomp PlayStation into the dirt. And this is just the latest in a long string of moves, where when you realistically look at the charts side by side compared to PlayStation, Xbox kicks the ever-loving shit out of PlayStation in so many ways. And it's so bizarre, tying this into back the previous topic, closing down the store, it is bizarre to see Xbox, a company that has not been around as long as PlayStation, and I would argue does not even have half of the legacy titles that PlayStation does. They have more respect for their legacy titles than PlayStation does, which is surreal and completely unacceptable for PlayStation. And I don't know what's going on with PlayStation's messaging, because if they wanted to do this, then they should have offered some kind of solution to balance out the bad PR that they were going to get. Except now they're just throwing out a problem and there is no solution to it. You can't buy or play PS1, PS2, or PS3 digital titles anymore, except what you already have downloaded for people. Is there a solution? Is there some kind of backwards compatibility service that you guys are going to provide? Maybe a Game Pass kind of thing for your legacy games? Nope, nothing. Sony, as always, just sitting there, tight-lipped, threw away the key, nothing. They're just quiet. And I'm so tired of this. I am so tired of PlayStation being quiet when it comes to things like this. They need to talk. Open your fucking mouth, Sony, and talk. Talk. I know you have this mantra of letting the games do the talking for you, and that works when you have all your eggs in a row on every other aspect. But when you start letting the games do the talking, and you just say, fuck the player base talking out of the other side of your mouth, it does not come across as genuine whatsoever. It comes across as corporate, soulless garbage. And speaking of that, PlayStation, and this is something I've noticed for a while now, PlayStation has become more corporate, soulless, greedy, bottom dollar chasing than ever at this point. I think they are going beyond the PS3. Like, people are starting to say they're returning to PS3 era Sony. They're starting to go to like new level of arrogance and maliciousness Sony with the PS5. And Jim Ryan didn't start this. He may have greatly accelerated the process, but I started noticing this shift back in 2018, maybe even earlier, 2017. And if they don't get their shit together and they don't wake up and see what they're doing to their image, to their legacy, then they're gonna be screwed compared to Xbox, because Sony cannot compete with Xbox when it comes to a lot of things. However, They can compete in terms of high quality exclusives, good customer PR. They can do that. They cannot compete one-to-one to Xbox, but they can compete with them in other ways. And they're not even competing with them in those ways. Except the way they've been trying to do it is this new strategy of turning PlayStation into a global brand, where they are focusing much more on things outside of the realm of video games, like movies and TV shows that I talked about last time. And they're also making weird purchases, weird acquisitions like Evo and Crunchyroll. They're just moves that I'm like, huh? Why are you guys going after Evo? Why? So you can flood my YouTube channel, my YouTube, what is it called? The YouTube feed with fighting tournament after fighting tournament after fighting tournament. I'm sick of looking at them. If you guys love fighting tournaments so much, fucking make a new channel for it. Stop flooding my feed with all your goddamn tournaments. I don't care about them. Yes, these moves will be financially successful. Yes, they will make Sony a lot of money. Yes, it will give these corporate stooges the fucking bonuses they want at the end of the year. But any sense of niche or openness or quirkiness that's defined PlayStation over the years will slowly be scrubbed away. And it's already starting to happen with closing Japan studio. Bleeding talent. This massive gaping wound of talent just bled out of Sony's side. And now they're gone. And if Xbox was smart, they would tempt each and every one of them with an offer to come work for them and make the titles that Sony does not want to make anymore. Xbox can do it. Xbox could do it. They could make the quirky titles that PlayStation used to and not have to worry about sales because they just put them on Game Pass and they'll be fine. And look, I get it. I understand. I'm worried too about the long-term effects of Xbox Game Pass. I get it. Believe me. You're renting games. I get it. You don't own them. But you cannot deny the value that Game Pass has. You cannot deny what it has, not only the value that it has, not only for the consumer, but for developers as well, that want to make riskier projects, that don't have to worry about breaking even, because they get an upfront fee from Xbox to ensure development costs or help them out in some way. They get exposed to the millions upon millions upon millions of subscribers to Game Pass, and then they are successful because if they were to make a game somewhere else, people that played their game on Game Pass could go, hey, that developer's good. I'll support them by buying this game full price. It works. It works in the long run. There are countless stories out there right now of fresh blood indie devs that went with Xbox and do not regret it and are thriving thanks to Game Pass. Meanwhile, PlayStation is saying, boo, we love indie games, while shutting down their livelihoods with shit like closing the Vita store. What system are you going to go for? If you were a small indie developer, would you rather make a deal with Xbox and have them, the comfort and security of Game Pass to ensure that you will get a fee up front and consistent exposure on that platform? Or would you rather go with PlayStation and potentially have your shit shut down after a while? And yes, I know one area where PlayStation is doing well is Plus. They are absolutely murdering Xbox when it comes to the free games that are offered every month on their service. It's not even a contest. But just looking at facts, Game Pass is way more tempting. Way better. Right now, it looks much better to work with Xbox than it does with PlayStation. And these cases, they're not deafening blows to Sony. They're not gutting Sony. They're not knocking them down to like last place with these moves. But these are cases where they're just more small things to add to the pile of already questionable things Sony has said and decisions they've been making for a while now. We have a saying at my work, and I think I coined this. If you keep racking up small screw-ups, you'll end up with one big noticeable shitball eventually. And it's gonna stink. And Sony's shitball is starting to fucking reek. And that's what I fear Sony is going to have in a few years down the road. Just this giant, massive pile of shit on their brand. And again, I've said this many times. I even said this in last week's video. Imagine what is going to happen when Xbox eventually closes the gap with high-quality exclusives. Now, when Xbox finally gets that tick in the comparison chart, how do you think PlayStation is going to look after what they've been doing over the last few months? They're going to look like dog shit. It's going to look terrible. It's just going to be embarrassing. It's going to be a stop, he's already dead moment for PlayStation when they finally realize this as far as public perception. And if I was in charge of PlayStation, I would make 3 big changes to their corporate structure, or what they're doing right now as far as marketing and business strategies. First of all, I would have the bigwigs be much more recognizable and open to the public. We don't need to see documentaries on what they eat for breakfast or what limo service they use or any shit like that, but I really miss the days of people like Yoshida and Layden and House and Corsi and others being seen on a pretty regular basis. Having human faces attached to these things works far better than a logo and a PR statement. And I know he's unpopular, but once Jim Ryan has gotten a lesson in not putting his foot in his mouth, have Jim Ryan out there and talk. Just stop doing these like puff piece GQ interviews or Wired interviews or whatever. Have these executives out there. Show us that you care. And because we are a far cry from the days of open communication between us, the audience, and these people. I miss the days of Shuhei Yoshida and Sean Layden and Andrew House being out there and talking about PlayStation. I especially miss Sean Layden because I thought that man, he's an executive. I get it, but this is the rare time I'm going to say this. I miss that executive. I really do. He seemed like a cool dude. Secondly, bring back iconic franchises using modest budgets. This is something that I thought they did really well with Sackboy: A Big Adventure, where they took a property and then they gave it to a third-party developer and they turned it into something unique. You know, not everything needs to be these lavishly produced games that cost a fortune to make, like $100 million to make. They could create a new Parappa the Rappa and have that be a digital-only title. They could bring back Siren as a fixed-camera survival horror game. Or they could just do anything with Sly Cooper. Just something with that. Get talented second-party studios to make games based on what they've already got. They've got a treasure trove of franchises, and they aren't doing shit with them. Nothing. Again, the only appearances you see of them are in fucking Astro's Playroom. That's it. And the third thing, well, this is technically 2 things, but whatever. Stop. Just stop creating this air of mystique around your brand. This isn't working. And plan your showcases smarter. It was cute once upon a time for PlayStation to be quiet leading up to the next big E3 conference or PlayStation Experience showcase. Back then, it was genuinely exciting because digital presentations hadn't exploded as they have now, and Sony was on a roll with dropping megatons. But now, Sony can talk whenever they want and nothing is stopping them. What I would do, I would hold a big digital showcase every 4 months or so and focus almost exclusively on PS5 exclusives. Like, actual exclusives, not timed console bullshit. I would also include big third-party announcements and indie games that are extremely distinct, like really highly anticipated stuff. And hell, I would make one of these showcases focus solely on Sony news. That's what a state of play should be. With E3 pretty much dead, these showcases need to feel like a big deal. But for me, personally, they don't. Their marketing strategy for them is all over the place and lacks in any kind of bite. The one time that I think they did this properly was during the June PS5 showcase event. That was exactly what I'd like to see from them every time. Just come out for an hour-long presentation, show a bunch of first-party exclusives, show a bunch of second-party PS5 exclusives, come out big guns with third-party announcements and indie games that look great. Do that. Plan your showcases smarter. And I have to wonder too, I have a feeling Sony is staying quiet because they want to build up this air of mystique for their next big showcase that's probably going to come out in the summertime. It's probably when we're going to get the long known Silent Hill game that's going to be announced. And we're probably going to get that at some point then we're going to get new Horizon footage. We'll get first footage of God of War. That's when we'll get it. But they need to talk. They can't do this anymore, where they want to be this mysterious thing. Because, you can try to be like Nintendo with your cutesy little mystique, but it doesn't work when you got terrible news after terrible news after terrible news that's been coming out over the last few months. Ever since the PS5 gen started, it's just been nothing but terrible news. Beyond what exclusives Sony has for the PS5. Not including Spider-Man, not including Sackboy. They started out the generation with two really, really strong exclusives. Demon's Souls Remake and the masterpiece that is Astro's Playroom. And this is what's so frustrating to me. Sony is capable of making terrific games. They still are, based on what I've seen so far. I have, besides Destruction All-Stars sucking bongo dick, there is no reason to doubt that Sony will still make fantastic games for this generation. I have no doubt that Horizon Forbidden West will be good. I have no doubt that the next God of War will be good. I have some doubt about Ratchet & Clank a little bit, but more than likely it'll be okay. But when the only thing that they have that's going for them are their exclusives, and they suck on every other front, this is when they need to have an all hands on deck kind of meeting, and just think about where they are steering the ship. Because right now the ship is headed to a fucking iceberg once Xbox closes the gap with their exclusives. And it's going to happen. That is inevitable. Look at the studios they have now. Ninja Theory, Obsidian, Double Fine, fucking all Bethesda now. All of it. They'll get there eventually. And I don't think Sony, besides Insomniac, they have made one acquisition. Where is the acquisition for Bluepoint? That's what I want to know. Because if you're going to save your big acquisition for one studio, you guys need to make it Bluepoint. Bluepoint is a big deal after Demon's Souls. You guys need to get on that shit quick and snatch them up before Xbox comes in with a more tempting offer, which could happen. Weirder things have happened. And on a final note, before I end this very long video, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that criticizing Sony for decisions like this isn't Sony bashing. It's not hating on Sony. Do you guys think I personally get any enjoyment out of seeing Sony make terrible decisions and drop the ball so badly when it comes to clear communication and consideration? I certainly don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy holding their feet to the fire after supporting them since I could hold a controller as a toddler. I don't enjoy this, but criticizing Sony means you care. Really just lambasting Sony for their terrible decisions means that you give a shit about them and their legacy. You certainly come across more as giving a shit about them than Sony themselves. And if you just bury your head in the sand and get angry at people that criticize Sony fairly for the decisions they've been making, then you're part of the problem. If you want to bash on the people that are criticizing Sony, you're part of the problem. You are not a real fan. Sorry, it's the truth. Because true fans are willing to take to task things that they love. I love Kingdom Hearts, but I have no shame in admitting when I've absolutely just bashed the shit out of that franchise before for dumb things. Being able to criticize something you love means you care. And if you don't care, then you are part of the problem. Alrighty. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this Sony mess. I'm going to go drink some water now. My throat is pretty parched. I'm happy with this take on the video. I'm happy with this. Yeah. Get your shit together, Sony. Get it together before it's too late.